This is the Anatomy Hunter podcast featuring 13-year-old Jack Manor's incredible story of Jack shooting turkey foot, the trophy buck that refused to die even though he was shot through both lungs. Enjoy. This is hopefully going to be our first episode of what we're thinking of calling the Anatomy Shot series, where we document what seems impossible in seeking facts to make it understandable. That's what our goal is, and I am thrilled to be here today to hear the story, which I've heard about in print. I've not actually talked to them about this, and it's about this arrow that was shot through both lungs of this deer with this crossbow, and what happened afterwards. I'm going to hold the details up so you fine folks can give them to me. I don't want to do it ahead of time. But the first thing we want to do is to have you fine folks introduce yourselves.
So we'll start out.
My name's Ben Manor. I'm from Durand, Wisconsin, and I've been hunting into archery, rifle, crossbow for 57 years. And this is my son.
So I'm the one that reached out to Brian, and after my son Jack here shot this deer, and long story short on myself, I've been in the hunting industry. I'm 44 now. I've been in the hunting industry since I've been 14.
What do you do for a living now?
Right now I work at Artisan, which we do river's edge tree stands. We do bayonet ground blinds. I'm the sales manager for the company, and very fortunate to have time to go out hunting with my dad and my son, but started at a small sporting goods store, graduated up to a larger sporting goods store retailer, went from there into the repping business, into the whole outdoor industry, and then actually the year he was born, I thought it'd be time, a little bit less time on the road, a little more, and try another venture into the manufacturing side, actually working for one of the companies, and joined up with Artisan, I guess now 13, 14 years ago. And
really?
Yeah. So I've been here in Cumberland for 13 years.
And you look like a teenager, but you're not. But you're not a teenager.
No. So and then this is my son Jack.
Okay.
I'm Jack. I've been hunting since I was 7 years old. I obviously killed this deer. Love to play sports. And do well in school. Love to hunt and shoot trap and all that stuff.
And you're really good at trap shooting.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so let's get into the story. So now I want to do this as a story because I love, since like I say, I'm a hunter wannabe. I don't get to do a lot, so I feed off other people's stories. So I'd like to start out by telling the story about you got up in the tree stand. How long were you there before the deer came? Did he come from your right or left? Were you nervous? Which one of you can kind of tell this so people can listen and picture this in their mind?
So can I rewind back a year?
Yes, let's go back.
So
yes,
let's go
do.
back here because
like
getting into the tree stand when these guys got in there was that's the fun part. The main story that you're here to, the story that I love is we live this every day. I mean, we do the food plots, we do the tree stands. This crazy guy goes through 3 or 4 gallons of weed whip gas a year to weed whip deer trails to make sure the deer goes where they want to make trails for them. So again, that's all the work that we do in the off season to get
you're
ready.
Loving every minute of it.
Loving every minute of it.
Making me jealous every minute hearing
this deer was really, I mean, he was a 4. I don't want to get age. I don't know exact age, all that. We didn't have him aged or anything like that. But I'm going to call him like last year was a 4-year-old, at least a 4-year-old. Big bodied deer.
So you'd had him on your cameras?
We had a ton of photos of him. Most fall. The property we hunt is 160 acres, solid woods. It's in the middle of one of the biggest woods in the county. And there's a lot of farm fields quarter mile, half mile away. So we every once in a while we'll get a homebody that shows up in the summertime and lives there, but they're more down towards the crop fields and the soybean fields and all that stuff. What happens is, and this has happened now for 4 years, possibly 5, since I've been keeping documented, everybody talks about this October lull. I love it when people start talking about the October lull, because
Really?
when people start losing their deer that where they have their cameras out on the field edges or fields or closer to fields, where do they go? They don't fall off face where they come more centralized. They go away from the fields. They come to swell up, I call it, right? They get in that area, they start to put on a bunch of weight. These bucks, and we'll talk about him, but these bucks are as big as they're ever going to be. But so anyway, last year we started getting photos of this deer October 10th, October
really?
October
And
11th. That's when we
common
start
for your area.
getting deer on it. And
Wow.
3 years in a row, I have called that because I love watching deer. We have other properties that we watch, and
How many cell cameras? I take it you have cell cams.
I'm kind of a cell cam junkie, I guess.
many?
I got it.
How many now?
28.
28 going at one time.
28 going at one time on this particular
And
property.
since I'm not endorsed or sponsored by anybody, what brands do you use and why?
I
Real quick.
run 3 different brands. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I have 22 covert cameras. They're a good camera. I got him because he knows how to run them. That's what we started with. Remember, he's 70 years old, no cell phone. No cell phone. He's got a cord phone at the house.
I'm relating to this. I'm relating to this.
No
Come on now.
cell phone. No cell phone. So one of my you talk about rabbit holes. Small one here. One of the proudest moments I had was about 5 years ago. He calls me at work and says, "Willie, look at this deer on camera." I showed him how to open the computer and put the code in.
Don't laugh at us, son. Don't laugh at us, son.
to put the code in the computer
I caught that.
and find the icon, click on that and look at it. Well, I'd always have a photo of deer and I'd text it to my mom. "Hey, show Dad this deer. Hey, show Dad this deer." I'm at work. He calls me, goes, "Willie, check out this deer on this camera," and I'm mind blown. Like, he's calling me to tell me about deer, which is awesome. So, getting back to the deer.
Unfortunately, I relate all too much.
So he shows up mid-October.
And this is the one you saw it first on camera. This deer.
No, that
That's
was a different
deer.
deer.
Okay.
This is last
I
year.
gotcha.
I shot that one I saw.
That's
another whole
That's
story.
another whole story. So we get this deer on camera, and he's got a lot of characteristics just like this.
Beautiful,
He's got the kicker
beautiful.
off the back, but just a big, blocky, solid deer, right? Big 4-year-old, what we're after. Last year we ended up taking a couple other deer. Jack didn't have, sports, he was talking about that. Didn't have much time to bow hunt last year, crossbow hunt. So now fast forward to this year. I had a few photos of him early, and I've got a bunch of photos that I'll give you 2 that we could pop up on here. But we got him on our property got logged this last year, so the deer movement was kind of off, just from where I traditionally had deer cameras and photos of deer. So I found we had a new water hole put in, and I started to get some photos on him. I knew right away which deer it was. We called him Turkey Foot just because of the back of the. He had that big trident-looking thing or turkey foot-looking thing on the
Show it
back.
off here, Jack. Why don't you show it off so the people are watching this
And
so they
then,
can get a good look at it.
then you could tell, obviously, he exploded into. He got an extra tine here. His base down here, he must have cracked or did something to his skull plate or whatever. But he's got a big bump here. So obviously, he was going on one of our target deer this year. So now the week before, this is my fault, and I look at thousands and thousands and thousands of trail camera photos all year. I mean, I have cameras running all year. When I first started getting photos of this deer in mid-October, I actually laid off this deer, and that's my fault.
You laid off him?
Like I didn't go hunt that area. I'm fortunate enough I was hunting I had a target buck that I was after from the year before, but there in no way I should be going after a deer this size, especially the body size and that, and this deer taught me not to believe everything your cell cameras say on how big or small you think a deer is. He didn't look this big.
Oh, really?
A couple photos he did, but most of the photos we got, and we had hundreds of photos of him. I mean, the night he shot, or the night before he shot him, we had him on 6 different cameras. So he was moving all over our farm, right? So, but it was my fault that I didn't. I will go after a deer this big. I'm not.
You didn't think he was that big?
I didn't think he was that big. I didn't lay eyes on him. My eyes. So, October. That was October 10th, 11th. We're getting photos of him. He's getting very active on our property, and as in. I don't just have him on one camera. I have him now on 2, then 3 different cameras. Then I got him on opposite sides of the
During the daytime?
Some daytime.
Some nighttime.
Some
But you're the cover. The deer
we're
are
the
coming
cover.
there because the pressure comes on. You're a big Betty.
Yep,
there.
we're his home.
Yeah.
We're his home. So I'm a big. I remember dates, and and I can remember this to this day because it was my fault. I got a photo of this deer which really showed off how big he was, and on the 13th of October. And the reason I know that is because the next day I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to go after this deer. So I went after him, and on the morning of the 14th, and my target buck that I had been hunting for 2 years showed up at my other property. In front of my stand at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's the reason I remember that date. So I was chasing cameras. That's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But that's when I realized this was a big deer. That photo I got on the 13th. Just the angle and how close he was.
But you didn't know which deer of the 2 to hunt? Is that what you're saying? You had one on the other one. You had this one here. Which one do I go after?
Yeah.
Had you hunted up to that date or not?
Oh yeah. I had hunted up to that date. I had been hunting this other.
Will you hunt
very
if you
large.
don't have a target buck? Will you hunt at all?
Yes,
You will.
I will. We usually have a target or 2 to go after.
Okay.
And the nice thing, we do have a couple different properties that we do hunt, so we're not always hunting this
So
one
you're not
target.
over hunting one buck that's there and
Right.
spooking
Yeah,
them.
and
sure.
I can probably honestly say I overhunted the one deer. He's a big target deer that I'm after, and as of today, we haven't had a photo of him for
Yeah,
a while,
hope
but
that he's still alive.
he could be alive yet. So. So then we kind of looked at the schedule, and that weekend before was youth season rifle, and he had shot a deer with a nice wide deer with
On the same property as this?
one of our
Different
other
properties.
properties. Yep.
So he hadn't been disturbed.
He
Everything
hasn't
looks
been
nice and
disturbed
natural.
yet. So then fast forward to he did shoot him on the 26th. Fast forward to the 23rd, and another one that we had been after identified an older nice deer that we wanted to go after.
Now you got to realize, well, when you're telling all these stories, you're going to have people out there like me that don't have things like that.
I
In
know.
reality,
We're very
people that watch this and they see Wisconsin, there's one county, when you mention deer hunting in the United States, Buffalo County comes up to the biggest there is. And in essence, you're the adjoining county.
Correct.
And you're as good of hunting as anything there's in Buffalo County, what you're talking about. So people are listening to a podcast
Yep.
with basically as good of hunting big bucks as there is in the state of Wisconsin.
Yes.
Yep.
I mean, that's honestly not a stretch to say it.
Yep. And we talked about it earlier too, though. There's still not one around every corner. And it takes the work. It takes the work. That's the only way we know how to do it. There's all different
And you
ways.
pass them up to get them that big.
Yep, and we pass them up. So we had a buck, and he's a big fan of big 8-pointers, and just 8-pointer. I don't want to say just 8-pointers, but we had a really nice 8-pointer older deer that we had seen, and about, I would say it's on the same ridge, but about 200 yards from where Jack ended up killing this one. You had shot him, and that one, from one of your previous podcasts that you're talking about, you talk about the fire hose hit. Mm-hmm. I have never seen a blood trail on a deer like his, quartering away, goes in right where it needs to be, comes out right in front of the brisket. The blood trail was 3 feet wide.
On both sides?
Yeah.
On
Entrance
both
and
sides.
exit?
Every jump, you just sprayed it.
Sprayed, and it was never seen anything like it.
How far did he go?
I saw him go down.
40 yards.
40 yards.
40
Yeah.
yards, maybe.
40 yards and tipped right over. So So that was on the 23rd. That same night, a couple different cameras were getting photos of this deer, and I knew he had the weekend off. No hockey.
Surprising.
Baseball's done. No hockey.
It was that in between.
In between, and I said, Jack, we're gonna.
So you went in there, Jack, to get this buck.
Yes.
Yes,
That's just a fact.
Yes.
yes.
And you weren't going to shoot any other buck there but him. Is that right? For the
There
most
was
part?
another one that looked,
Man, you know,
looked all right.
there's such a thing as taking something and digging it in.
There was another one that I would have shot if he came in.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I was going.
This
for
is the one
year.
you wanted.
This was.
And the third one, Gramps had already shot it.
Yep.
The 8-pointer.
Yep,
Right.
he was gone.
Right.
We got a new name, we're going to call it 8-point Gramps.
Yeah.
It's
So
true, it's all true.
so Saturday morning, so we all get up. We're into going in the stand early. We get in early. We get in there, let the deer settle down, and then
You mean you get in the dark
get
before
in
daylight?
the
Get in
dark.
there.
Now, we're in it's not a ground blind. You call it not a box blind.
Yep,
What stand are you in?
it's one of our products. It's a cage tower blind or a cage
Would that
blind.
be considered a box blind
No,
category?
no,
What's
it's
the difference in a box blind?
we call it a.
This is a River's Edge product, so you can
Yep.
do a commercial here now.
Yep. So River's Edge product, it's a soft-sided blind.
Oh, it's soft-sided.
It's soft-sided, made to be put out and left out. It's got a cage, right? That's an internal frame system.
So it's a heavy duty,
Yes.
in my mind, ground
Yes.
blind that's strong enough to withstand hail.
You can-
that you can put like mine right now. I
Yep.
got to bring in because the snow's gonna collapse.
This has an 800
You can do
pound-
pull-ups in it.
You can do. I can set it
can?
up and I can do pull-ups in it. Yes.
Well, I haven't
So-
lost enough weight. I don't
So
think I could, Jack.
So we get up to the top of the hill. It's top of the bluff. I drop these two off. Drop them off. I leave these two into that blind, and I went back and hunted a different stand.
So you're there a half hour before daylight, or what's the deal?
Probably an hour.
An hour before daylight, you
Yep.
dropped them off on a four-wheeler
No,
side
no.
by side?
I mean drop them off. Just we walked up the hill. They went to the blind. I kept walking down the ridge.
To another stand?
To a different stand. Yep.
Okay.
To a different
So you're
stand.
basically both hunting this deer in two different
Yes.
stands.
Yeah, pretty
You're a
much.
couple hundred yards apart or something.
Yep. Yep. And from the cell cameras,
He could have been in either one of them.
I had photos of this deer at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we were in at 5:15. So he was not too far from their stand, and it's like, did we bump him or whatever?
It was close.
It was close.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing you got there an hour earlier.
We
you would not have got that.
you get there an hour early, and
Now, what kind of stand were you in? I mean,
I was in a double. One of our
regular tree stand.
Yep, it's a double ladder stand. We're
Two-man tree
we're
stand?
doing that right a lot now, and
Really?
and just because obviously he's getting older, and 90% of the time we hunt out of our double ladder stands with one person because I can sit right in the middle. They're nice. They're big.
You can put your gear
Yep.
on one side.
But the 5 days that he can go because of sports, we can go to pretty much any spot we want. And
Okay, I don't want to ask this question, but you got all them trail cameras out. You work for River's Edge. How many tree stands or blinds do you have out in your properties? And I don't think I want to hear the answer to this.
It might surprise you. So if I have 22, I have 22 stands. Because if I have 22
stands out
if I
in
have
the
22
woods.
trail cameras out there, I have 22 stands. I put my trail cameras
With a
mostly
stand.
with the
Are they
stand.
out there year round?
Most of them are. But we can narrow that down. We got away from putting up someday stands, we call them. If we're going to put a stand up, and that we have a dozen of them that are go-to spots. If I get photos of deer that are bedding out on this point, or
You
bedding out
know
on
this is a little
point,
funnel area
Yeah.
that you got to squeeze. You got something
Yep,
that
yep.
you know that's a good.
down in the bluff country. I mean, most
So
of the
this
deer.
is hilly?
Yeah,
Oh,
bluffs.
yeah.
Most of the deer cross top or bottom. Yeah, there are trails that go in the middle or whatever, but they cross at top and bottom. So if you can funnel them in up top, you can funnel them in at the bottom. Bottoms are really tough to hunt just because of the
Wind?
thermals and that kind of stuff. So to give you an idea, the stand that he shot this one out of,
It's called Old
named
Faithful
Old Faithful.
because we shot a lot of deer out of there. He's shot.
He's shot a few out of it.
So it's the 8-point stand. Old faithful 8-point.
Pretty much.
If I could just interject a little bit on this one, and we were talking about spots on hill property. I'm a big fan of bottlenecks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I make some of those bottlenecks with a chainsaw after they log, and we got a couple spots. This isn't particularly one of them. This was a food plot, and Jack and I got there with Dad, and at 5:15
Yeah,
in the
wasn't
morning, and Jack and I sit in the cage blind, and you went on to another stand.
Yep.
The morning progressed up until about 8 o'clock. We had does and fawns in front of us in the food plot, and a buck.
So you
One-
got, so
one
this is
little
in the woods, you're saying it's just this bedding area, but now you put a food plot
Yep.
in it?
So
Yes.
so this is a
Yes.
Boy,
log.
oh boy,
Yeah.
this story's getting more and more, really?
This is a
Yeah, this is-
log landing from when they logged it long
Okay.
time ago.
And you just put a little quarter-acre food
and,
plot
and
there.
from
Bigger than
them
that.
from them
Bigger than
logging it this year or this last winter, we had them pull some stumps out of there. This is a 2.5 acre food plot,
2.5
right in the middle of
Right in the middle of the bedding area.
on
Yes.
top.
Yes,
on
on
of the
top.
ridge.
on top. And then you'll see we took some photos of the area. We have a water tub, 65-gallon water tub that we filled.
Supply water.
How do you get the water to it?
That we do have a logging road that we can drive right
There's
to
a
it,
logging road.
and we have a tank that goes in the back of the truck and open the hose up. And during the rut, you have to fill it at least once a week.
Yes.
They'll drink that much water, especially this year it was so dry.
65-gallon tank, and they'll drink it in a week.
Yep. Because there's the other thing you think of. There's no water up on
There's
top.
no water in the hill country. The water's always
Yeah.
down on the bottom.
On the bottom.
And how far is this water tank from your blind?
Just so happened to be right at about
25
21
yards.
yards. 21 to 25 yards. And then right next to the blind, or to, sorry,
Is-
to the
is
to
that-
the
To the-
water tank is a give away all our secrets here. Is a cedar. There's not a lot of cedars out on this property. We have a different property that has cedars. So we will cut a cedar tree,
Post. There's
cedar post, about 4 or 5 inches diameter. Go up there, auger a hole in the ground, put that in there, and then have a scrape tree right out in front of it. And there is something about cedar
There is.
that they love rubbing.
I don't know what
Yep.
it is.
Not that it matters, but is it white or red cedar? Do you
Red
know?
cedar.
Red
It
cedar.
is red cedar?
Red cedar.
Because white cedar grows in swamps. I wouldn't think you'd
Yeah.
have any down there, but
No,
most of the red
not so.
cedars are giant bushes.
Yeah.
So
So-
we try to get one that's about this big around.
yeah.
And we've had such tremendous luck doing that. We're giving away our
Really?
secret here.
There's one
Uh,
over there.
A lot of
a cedar.
times that will be hit when you put them in at that time of year. I like to put them in September, but this year we didn't get at it till a little bit later in the year.
Yeah.
Within 2 days it'll be rubbed.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I'm not kidding you.
And they have-
we didn't read anything about this, but this is one of our own type things. And then now the breweries have been doing it down in Iowa.
Well, they
With
do
the
it.
cedars, you mean?
Not the
No,
cedars. They
just
take
rubbing
them
pole.
out.
They do a ton
Yeah.
of them, and we wash all their stuff too. So anyway,
Yeah.
Do you know anybody that's more into whitetail hunting and putting into it more than you guys do?
yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You do?
there-
You really do?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's I mean, we do a lot of work for it. There are a lot of people that do a ton of work too, and that's what and when we start talking the same language and stuff, I mean, I just like talking deer. That's why I'm working in the deer industry and working in, you know. And we were talking earlier. I look at deer, I look at some sort of a live deer, photos of a deer, or every day. I mean, it's every day. So I mean, I come in here too. So, but yeah. So the cedar post along with food plot. Nothing special in the food plot this year. We put soybeans in,
Soybeans.
and my goal this year, we put soybeans in. It's only 2.5 acres. We knew that they were going to crush it. But
So why put it in? It'd be gone before the hunting season gets started.
because I planned on them eating it, and then in August I was going to redo it and
Okay.
put in a fall plot. For some reason, remember I told you they don't summer up on there, so I
Yeah.
actually we had a pretty good looking
Yeah.
bean field on there,
In the fall.
and then September coming, they wiped it out. I mean, it looks
And
like
then it was too late to plant again.
You'll see the you'll see
like
the
that
photos on it. They're like that big, so they just wiped everything out. So anyway, they're still coming through and they're hitting the rubbing post, especially now. I mean, they had come to that so much. We created a 2.5 acre scrape, we'll call it, because the bucks are just coming
That's
in
a
there.
community meeting place.
Community,
basically.
and then boom, they go out from there.
Still right now? Because right now, this is we're
I was there 2
early
days
December.
ago. I was there 2 days ago, and this is Sunday, the 8th of December, and I had scrape in the snow where they pawed it out in the snow.
Yeah. So
So there's something going on right now down there. The secondary rut or younger doe is in heat, and the bucks will clue in on her. They'll still hit those scrapes, and the overhangers, the overhanging limbs. We just leave some limbs on the cedar post, and we've even this year we experimented a little bit with ropes and
Yeah, I was
scent.
going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
We experimented with that. We had some success with some of the ropes and some not.
What about scents? What's your beliefs on scents?
Well,
Do they work?
my
Is there a
belief-
brand that works? Remember, I'm not
we're
sponsored. by anybody.
we're laughing because I think
What's so funny?
my belief on scents is a little bit different than his
Yes.
belief
Well,
on
good. I like to
scents.
hear
Yeah.
difference of opinions.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Putting the cedar post out, where we put these posts and ropes, we'll say overhanging branches, are at high traffic areas.
At intersections and
Bottlenecks
traffic.
and-
Bottlenecks and that. So my belief on it, and maybe we'll have to document this or video it or whatever, but we're putting it in a high traffic area. If you put something hanging straight down and dig the dirt out of there, if you don't put any scent in there, it's in such a high traffic area that they're gonna hit it. They'll like, oh, it's just great. Let's hit it. So so I don't use a lot of scent just because I don't like to go in to the areas until I'm going to hunt. But on the exact opposite,
The exact opposite is that I like to monkey with deer. Okay, and I like
this
to
free
monkey with
bottle.
scents. A deer has 7 scent glands in their bodies, and you know what they are. But
No, I'm not on that part. I'm not.
but
I
the
don't know.
average hunter wouldn't have a clue that they have the interdigital gland
Right.
in the middle of their toes. They have salivary gland in their mouth. They have the gland on their forehead. They have the tarsal gland, and then they have the metatarsal gland in the back. And they're all used at different times
You know,
of the
there's
year.
another one nobody ever mentions that I showed the editor of Deer and Deering at one time, and I can't figure out why. In their nose.
In their nose, yeah.
Do you know that one?
The
The
nasal
hole in the
gland.
nose.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of times you see on the overhanging branches where they're chewed. And we found out this year that they chew those ropes.
They do.
They'll chew the ropes when I put the scent on there. And there's different kinds of scents. We used this year we used Smokies. I don't know if you want to mention
You
that
know,
or not. But
when you mentioned scents, and you know, when I was in taxidermy, and all the time I spent studying deer, you wonder about using it because you know what that actually is. If you skin a deer out in their nose, if you take the next time you can't see it, you pull their nose back, you'll see a hole there. It's actually, and you can take a T-pin, and you can put it in that hole, and you'll run it back up what I call the nasal pouch, because when I sculpture them, that actually fills up with like a wax. Most of them don't have it. There's a waxy material that goes back into a white sack. You open it up, and it's just like kind of a powdery, not powder, but it's like powder and wax kind of mixed together type, whatever that is. And that's right where that hole goes through. And I had the editor of Deer and Deer hunting, like, I don't know, 40 years ago. I showed him that. He didn't know what it was. He put it in the magazine and he showed me, which wasn't true. And then they theorized that when they licked their nose and they licked the overhanging branch, that's what it was. But again, all these things, everyone's an expert, right? And my deal is I gotta prove what I say. If I tell you something, I want you to take it to the bank.
Yeah.
All I know is you stick the pin in the hole and there's a gland there. There's a hole with that stuff in it there. It doesn't have much of a smell. But I wonder if a guy was to take that on a skinned deer, that stuff there, I wonder, because nobody's ever done anything like that with it that I've ever heard
I
of.
guarantee you on the next deer that we shoot, he's going to be tearing the nose apart. That's just
Yeah.
just hearing that stuff, which is great. I
It's
mean,
weird. It wrinkles over it like this, so you really don't see the hole. You think you'd look in there and you'd see it.
Yeah.
But it's just a fold of skin that goes over it, and a T-pin will go all the way up right into the pouch. Because when I sculpture, I put on the back of my deer, I put that nasal pouch. I put a little bulge there.
Yeah.
I kind of one rule of sculpturing is you over accent
Over-act,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. So I kind of made my nasal pouch a little bit.
Great.
steeper.
Go ahead.
For me, with all that said, and I like to monkey with deer, and I like to monkey with sense, I still think you cannot beat their nose when it comes to human scent.
You can't cover it up.
You can't cover it up, you cannot beat it. You can't go to your stand 10 times in a row without them knowing, especially big guys like that. They played the game before.
You can't beat them, but here's the question. Can you minimize it?
Yes. And we do that too.
Do you think it helps?
Uh,
Can I tell the story about you, Doris, when you were younger?
you asked me the question, do I think it helps? It probably helps my head more than it helps anything, but
We got, when we
do
hunted,
that.
like I said, I'm a hunter wannabes, we never, the big bucks, all this, we're in a different world. We get, to me, a doe and 2 fawns is the sharpest animal. I haven't done, I mean, they're just, they come in the woods, they stop, they're up there, they're just like, I see them coming, I go, it's game over, they get me every time. She did one time, we tried this, back years ago, so remember, I'm the age of your dad. The big thing back then was baking soda. So we went out in the woods, 100 yards from your tree stand, no one's around, she took all her clothes off, in the woods, in a plastic bag to clothes, had all the hunting clothes in another plastic bag, did a baking soda bath 100 yards from the tree stand. So you're fresh, there's no sweat. Put the clothes on, get up in the tree stand right there. In comes the doe and 2 fawns. Oh! So I've ended up getting a bad attitude. Am I wasting my time? It's wind direction or nothing. But so what do you think? Do you think, how much difference do you think it makes by being clean? You put your clothes outside, but we're giving off odors from our body. There's people I know that will clean their fingernails, their teeth. I mean, is that fanatic? Is that real? What do you, because you guys are into it. What are your thoughts? You're the scent grandpa.
you're on the scent guy.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't think you can beat their nose,
But
but I do it. I do the shower stuff, the soaps and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, just in case. There's been this big controversy about urine. I think deer are attracted to all types of urine. People will say, well, I urinated into a scrape and the bucks hit it anyway. That might be true up to a point. Really, I don't pay much attention to that. I will urinate right out of the tree.
right, yeah, that's pretty standard. When we raised our deer,
Yeah,
I could
they
do
don't
that,
get-
and literally the deer would be drinking it before it hit the ground.
Yeah.
That's the honest truth.
Right.
And stuff, and I've done it before in the woods and had the adult does come right up there and smell it and whatever and lick it, because it's salt.
And the bucks they're attracted to all urine from September, as soon as they drop their velvet, till February. I've seen mating in February, once, in February.
You know what? My editor's going to get in trouble. We're here to do the podcast
Yeah.
half an hour.
No.
We haven't even started yet. So, well, no, that's
so now
good. That's
now
good.
we are up to up to daylight of the 26th. I'm not with them, so I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to turn it over to these guys because they're
Okay.
Now I joined back up to talk about what we're actually here to talk about.
Okay.
But I'll let these guys finish the.
Now, remember, I want to hear about the story because I got a visual. You first saw him coming in from your left. Was you there? Did you get nervous? How far away was it when you first saw him? Tell me, Jack. Tell me. I'm listening.
Yeah, he's the shooter dude.
All right, so there's this parking lot. We talked about the logging road that goes
Yeah.
up to there. We park at the bottom of that. They made logging smaller logging roads to get logs because they
Skidder
just logged.
trails.
Skidder trails.
So we walked up one of those. It was a big giant hill, and ruts everywhere. And so then we get up there. Not super windy. Little bit of wind though, maybe 5 miles an hour, 10 miles an hour.
Did the wind direction matter where you thought the deer was coming from?
wind
Or it
was
had to
perfect.
be
The wind was perfect.
So you did have a wind
one
direction.
thing you'll notice. Sorry to you talk about wind direction.
Yeah.
Almost every one of these, we were out here last night cleaning a bunch of stuff up or whatever, and going through every deer. I could probably go through every one of these and say the wind was perfect when I shot that one. The wind was perfect when I shot that one.
So
the
you-
wind was perfect out of the west where we needed
So
it.
you
to be.
play the wind big
Absolutely.
time.
Yes. Yes.
It's in
Now you got all the scent stuff and it works and all
But
that.
the wind direction and hunting the right stand, the right time is way more important.
Yep. The perfect wind for this one is west northwest, and that's what it was that day. So
That's a common denominator for every buck that I have at home too, because I keep track, and I can go like that buck was an east wind stand, which we get very rarely, an east wind. You get them before a cold front that comes through, or a rain. And I have one stand specifically set up for east wind in a bottleneck, and it's a travel corridor. We didn't get an east wind this year. I never set it. I never set that stand.
Isn't it wonderful though, all the stories we have from hunting,
Yeah.
all the experiences when you go back and you look at them. People think they're just mounted animals on the wall,
No, they're not.
but all the experience of our life,
Everyone's
the
got a
things
story.
together,
They're
the gramps, the son and the grandson, all that means together to pass on.
So, all right.
And then go ahead.
Okay, Jack, sorry.
We rabbit hole again. Rabbit trail.
All right.
So you're in the stand.
Yeah, we're in the stand. I don't know. I didn't see much for the first hour.
Why
and a
didn't you
half.
see much for the first hour?
He was
I might have been
out
sleeping.
back. Yeah, I got that figured out, didn't I?
Yeah.
Gramps wasn't sleeping though.
No.
Yeah.
No, he means business.
Yeah.
There's a couple of those that showed up 5 minutes after we got in the
Now
stand.
they coming to the water hole, they coming into the scrape deal, they coming into the
Water,
food plot. You guys got everything.
Water, they're picking beans.
Oh,
you know,
oh,
I mean,
they're there.
Yeah, they're there. Yep.
Well, go ahead, Jack.
Yeah. So then I wake up from my nap, and then I think I dozed off one more time, but then constant doze for a little while, and then there was one little buck that came in right before the sun came up.
What was wrong with that little buck?
He was a little small.
No, he had been shot.
Yeah.
He had been shot. We don't know by
yeah,
who.
that too.
We don't know by who.
The neighbors.
But he had right shoulder blade, right in the,
Yeah.
right there. The arrow must not have went through, but he was fine. He was bumping the does around,
And we still got pictures of it.
and we got he's still alive to this day. I got photos of him last night, so he's
Good.
he's good.
fine.
So
Yeah, I think he hit that scrape too.
hit the scrape.
And then, so that deer spooks off, so we kind of got excited for a second. And then it's a little quiet for 30, 45 minutes, and then a couple more does show up. They're there for a little bit. They keep looking back.
We're about an hour after daylight and after shooting time right now.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
time was it, Jack? About 8:30, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something like
8:30.
that. So then they keep looking back, and then they leave, and then 3 more does come in. And then we hear some, like, I don't know how to describe it, like rustling leaves and like thrashing kind of. And then so this doe comes running out, and then this buck here comes running out, chasing it really hard, and they
Full run.
Now this
Yeah.
is October, what day?
26th.
October
Oh, so it's
26th.
that late?
Yeah,
Okay.
yep.
20, okay, all right.
Yep.
So he's running full, and he actually runs past our stand. And there's 2 roads. There's one kind of trails, but there's one there at the corner. And then there's another one, same side, but at the top there's another road that comes through. He came through on that one, chasing that doe full, and then that doe actually cut back and turned around. If that doe just would have kept going, never would have shot him. So that doe turns around, kind of joins up with the other does. I asked Papa to range him already before he even stopped moving, just to like get a gauge on where he's at. So then he kind of walks towards the does. He's facing that road that he came in on.
Is he walking now? Is he running? What's he doing?
He's walking now because he chased that doe past, and then he came back. He kind of like walked to that.
Is he
other
done with
group
the
of does.
doe? He's done chasing that one doe.
Yeah, or I don't know if he was done, but
You wanted to check the other ones out
Yep.
too.
so
And
then
he's coming towards you.
Mhm.
Okay.
So he's coming back towards the water hole, and then he's just behind that water hole, and then Papa can't see him. So,
Because that blind window.
or I
first
guess
shot,
you could see
Let's
his.
see out of the window.
he was looking out of this window, and then Jack set up with the crossbow
Okay.
here, and these windows, the window and the diamond in the front shut. So he's past Dad's window. He can see him.
Coming into
Yeah.
his window.
Yeah, just
So-
walking parallel.
Yeah, you ranged him. I think he was at 45 when you ranged him, and he was past that. So I knew he came. He was in the same like lane. He didn't come in any farther. He was at like 45. So he comes in right behind that water hole. And then I knew the water hole was 20-something yards, and he was maybe 10, 11, 12 yards behind that. So I was like, I'm going to take him.
Well, you asked me, Jack, not to interrupt you, but you asked me how far is he?
Yeah, and you were like, I can't see him. So I was like, so then I put the 30 on him, and I thought he was a little farther than that, like 31, 32, but I was just going to put the 30-yard pin on him. So then I take the shot, thought I hit him perfect. He goes running.
Was he broadside?
He was a little bit quartering away.
And was he walking or just standing?
He was standing.
Head up or head down?
His head was down.
Head was down, and he didn't lunge or anything when you shot. He didn't jump the string as they call it.
Nope, he didn't jump. He kind of like curled back, and then
After you hit him or before you hit him?
After I hit him.
Okay.
So he didn't really run out of there, which I
He
told him.
didn't?
No,
Not hard.
he didn't run hard like other deer when they get shot. I told that to him, and that's when he got like a little like. Well, we'll get into that.
Okay, so maybe thought he didn't know he was hit.
Yeah.
It's kind of
So-
how he acted, maybe.
Yeah,
But you saw you hit him.
I knew I hit him, and I saw him running. The blood was just
Now,
pouring
did
out of
you
both
see
sides.
that he hit him too?
I
Or
didn't
when he
see,
ran
I
away?
didn't see when the
You didn't see
arrow
the
hit.
shot. You saw him running away.
Yeah, and the
Away,
blood
it
just
ran down.
pouring out of him.
Yeah, you could see the blood pouring out.
Both
Both
sides.
sides?
Both sides.
Both sides.
Yeah.
And so you could see if you shot him at, I'll say 35 yards,
Yep.
and you saw him run away and you didn't see him then. So you're over 40 yards away and you're seeing blood coming out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you're seeing a deer running at 40 yards away, you're seeing blood come out. There has to be a tremendous amount of blood.
Yes.
Just to
So-
visually
so-
see it.
Yes.
To fast forward a little bit, when I got to him, he gave me a great visual. He goes, Dad, we got back to the house. He goes, Dad, this is what the water or the blood looked like. He went and got a glass out of the kitchen counter and he filled it with water and he goes, psh, psh,
Every time he would.
psh. So it gave me a visual. So anyway, we'll get to that.
So-
Finish your story here.
Yep. So he runs off. Me and Papa are all excited. I call Dad.
As far as you're concerned, he's done. We got him.
Yeah.
I thought he
high
went
five.
maybe
Yeah.
50 yards. I
So-
thought he was going to go 50 yards and tip over.
I'm sitting there, myself, cell cam guy, and I'm sitting there kind of keeping tabs on him because I keep getting notifications because he's dozing and that little buck's doing the scrape, and I'm like, man, they've got some activity over there. I'm not seeing too much, which is fine.
He never showed on camera. He
so
never went
I
past
didn't get a
camera.
photo of this deer on camera, like because he come flying past the camera. He might have even been a little bit east of the camera. Goes running, and then he shot him right when he was behind the camera or whatever. I have it on a stick right in the middle of the field, facing the
I
water
got
hole and
pictures
stuff.
there.
So I get a call, and there's no other reason why he's calling me at 8:30 in the morning, and I'm like, hello.
You can't wait to hear it.
And before he could say anything, I'm already packing up my stuff. I didn't care it was 8:30 in the morning, prime time, 26. Who cares, right? I'm there for him and to go join up with him. And
Wow,
he tells me
that's
the story.
exciting.
I'm like,
That's
all right, don't move.
We just stayed in there.
It didn't take me 15, 20 minutes to get over to you. It didn't take me that long, but
You were basically running.
I got
over.
there. I got over to him, and I've learned we've been on a lot of blood trails, lots and lots of blood trails over the years, good and bad, both of them. And I've learned that first impressions speak wonders, right? So I talked to him right away. I said, "Okay, was he broadside?" He was quartering away a little. That was what he said first, and he benched that. Okay, was he stopped? Yes, he was stopped. Did you hit him back? No, I hit him right right where you want to. Then I said, was it high or low? And he goes, a little low. Well,
Yeah, because I initially thought I put the 30 on him. He might have been. We ranged after it was 35, I think. So I thought I was a little low, but not much at all.
But your mind starts telling you when you're asking these questions. When someone says a little low, well, was it a little low or a
what does that
little
mean?
bit more? I mean, so I like to break the deer in a third, right? Top third, middle third, bottom third. He said it was in the bottom third. Okay, well that's good. There's a lot
Yeah,
of stuff
yeah.
down there that's good. But the two things that he said that concerned me was he didn't go running out of there. Now blood's good, pumping out of there. That's good to hear. But he didn't mule kick and he didn't run out of there. And then quartering away, did his mind tell him he wasn't quartered away? Was he quartered away more than what he thought? So that
He
was
wasn't
just,
quartered away much.
right. But that's just first impressions, because
But the fact that it's quartered away is good because the arrow's going
yeah,
forward. So
that's
that's
good.
good. That's a good.
that's good. So, so from what it said, I just said, well, let's go find your deer. you
Well,
know?
we tried to find the arrow first to see if it like kicked on a rib and went like we looked at the line shot, see if it hit a rib or something. We couldn't find the arrow. You went back and found the arrow.
The next day.
The next-
That's
So
that one.
normally that arrow, what pound bow? It's a Raven crossbow.
Yeah.
What pound bow is it?
I don't know what the poundage is on it.
It's-
You
But-
probably know better
A lot.
than we will.
What would you expect for the pass? You would
It
expect a
shoots-
complete pass?
Yes.
Zip?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look at the broadhead. I don't
Yep.
think we've talked
Yep,
about that
we
yet.
have.
Tell us what that broadhead is.
This is a grizzly stick 200 grain broadhead.
Is that
Two
the
blade.
company name Grizzly Stick? Is that
Yeah,
the name
Grizzly
of it? Who
Stick.
makes that?
So this is the so we started shooting these 4 years ago, 3 years
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
You got it when
Um,
you went on your moose hunt.
Yeah, or when he went out, yeah. So ever since Dad switched to crossbows, right? I mean, he shot Zwickis. We talked about that. He shot Zwickis for
Yeah.
quite a few years,
Good,
and
good.
and those arrows zip right through those deer so quick, and they stick in the dirt, a foot on the other side, into the ground.
So you're saying why
So-
not go bigger?
Why not go bigger? And so, it only sticks in the ground 6 inches.
And you've got more power.
Yes.
That
So-
shoots, not to interrupt you, Will, I just thought, that thing shoots 360 feet a second with a 506 grain arrow. If somebody's watching
Okay.
your podcast.
Sure.
That's into this technical stuff like I am, that's
And
important.
you custom fletch each arrow. You told me that
Yes.
earlier. You actually
Yeah.
float the arrow in water
I
to
buy
find
that.
the seam. The seam's
Yeah.
heaviest down, so
Yeah.
they're all fletched the same.
And the broadhead is the cock feather down, and they're up and down.
Okay,
Not
so you
crossways.
run it basically 90 degrees or parallel with the
Right.
cock feather down. Okay.
Parallel down for the front
Okay.
of the Raven.
Yep.
But go ahead.
So again, it's a grizzly stick, 200 grain,
And you shoot
double XL.
those. You practice shooting those out how far? Because you practice like
90
crazy.
yards.
90 yards, a
90
2-inch fixed blade.
Yeah,
Right.
it's just under 2 inches. I think it's 1.89 or 1.
And
Yeah,
it flies
it's
beautiful.
yes.
That's
Yes.
usually the first question when I mention this to somebody.
Yeah,
They go,
just-
well, how does it fly? And I go, if you set them up like this, for me, if you set them up like that, they fly perfectly. Because
Yeah.
everything's computer generated now, not like the old Zwickis where they welded them together. Zwickis.
Still,
were
there's a
made-
lot of surface area there when that thing's spinning. If that came off a normal bow with any kick or anything at
yeah,
all,
yeah.
it could go
Yeah.
really wild
Yeah,
fast.
and we talked earlier. We've got the long range rifle
Yeah,
rifle
you
range
guys
here,
practice it, you
and
know.
and
Practice with those heads, not just field points. You gotta
why would
practice
you not
with
put
rockets.
why would you not put the same effort into making sure every one of these is exactly the same, like
Yeah.
people do with rifle bullets or
Yeah.
reloading or
I
or
love your
whatever.
guys' attitude. You're going to be an inspiration to people who watch this.
So biggest
All that you
broadhead
do.
we can get. The day we don't send one through a deer with that or a compound or whatever, maybe we'll think about it. So, but anyway, that's the broadhead setup. That's the arrow.
Have you shot many animals with that broadhead?
Yep.
You have. So you believe in it because you know
Yep.
you've got experience with it.
Yeah,
I've
I've
shot 12 whitetails with it, and how many moose have you shot with
I've
this?
shot 2 moose with it.
2 moose.
Really, a moose that big? Wow.
Yeah.
Of course, you're shooting with your bow. You're
You
shooting
shooting regular?
70
bow.
pounds.
75 pounds. Yep.
75
Yep.
pounds,
75
okay.
pounds. So
And you run a moose one time from.
yeah, it went in. It was the
Yeah.
second shot. I shot him. He didn't even know he was hit. And I grunted at him. He come this way off on a tangent. He turned and come at me, and I hit him up here, and it come right. It ran that moose all the way through, and the arrow was sticking out.
So you
of the
believe that
backside.
2-blade penetrates good and it's big and you've got the power. Why not go big?
Yes.
I
Okay.
had one whitetail buck where it didn't go all the way through, and that one was shot on the front part of the hip and stopped up here. It was a sharp quartering, and he went 40 yards and tipped over, but only one where I haven't got a complete pass through. I like to have a hole on each side of them.
Yep.
The more blood on the ground, the easier they are to find.
Yeah.
So
It's worked well.
I mean, it's worked well. And again, I I was excited to have you here to ask you a question because you'll get into why maybe this deer lived longer than it was supposed to, but this doesn't have bleeder blades. Does that that's kind of my question. It's like, is a bleeder better than that?
I don't feel, when it comes to broadheads, like I say, I stay in my lane.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ask me, what does this guy know? I don't know on broadheads any more than anybody else, except for two things from my standpoint. One is where you're trying to hit the animal.
Well, that's big.
If you go through for the hard shot, and that's where this devil's triangle comes in. The deer, when I asked him, was it standing, was its head down? That's the big deal. They claim it's better to shoot a deer when it's standing. When its head is up, they drop less. I'm old school. 20 yards is my farthest shot.
Yeah.
I always want to shoot the deer walking.
Always want to shoot it walking.
I do, but remember, I'm old school and not hunting over bait. Now my yard running, so they're a buck during the rut's got their head down and they're walking. They're steady walking. They don't smell when their head's down. They don't see. They don't hear as much as they would. So that's the time easier for me to kill them. I'd hunt pinch points. They'd come by. You put it on them and you just go right with them and you shoot with them at 20 yards.
Yep.
I've never seen a deer jump an arrow, but I've always shot them walking. Now everybody on TV, they stop them and they shoot at longer distances. And one of the things, the anatomy hunter, that I want to implement if I can get this going is, because remember, I want to have 150,000 deer that would have been wounded killed, right? So what are my avenues of doing? I got many different ways, but one of them is this. It's gonna call, I got to come up with a name. It's gonna be called the Anatomy Hunt Challenge. But here's what it is, and you will like this, I think. 5 arrows leave your bow, and 5 dead animals. No second shots, no cripples. So if you set that up as a challenge, when I shoot, that animal's dead to the best of my ability. What that will do is restrict people from taking fringe shots. Because just the fact is, I'm not a good shot, and I'm not trying to use my jealousy over somebody like Levi Morgan that could hit at 80 yards is better than I could at probably 15, legitimately.
Right.
But nobody can take away the scientific fact when you shoot at longer distances. You've got the whack of the bow going off the noise. You've got my daughter at 15 yards with a 52-pound bow, and I got it on video, at 15 yards in a bank's blind with the foam on it. That deer dropped, you're guessing 2 inches at 50. You can see the arrow going, and it hasn't dropped, and it's in. How long does it take an arrow when it's in the air to hit the spot? And you can see it, and it drops that much on camera.
Yeah.
So if you combine that with distance, the arrow getting there, you're just going to wound animals no matter how good your shot if you take longer shots. And I'm not the moral police, but what I am is, let's bring forth facts. Let's bring forth things to be able to do it. And if I can get people to be challenged, 5 arrows, 5 dead animals, you're going to be in the 5-arrow club.
Right.
Then guess what's coming next? We got the 10-arrow club.
Yeah.
Well, but can you see what I'm trying to do?
Yes, yes.
I'm trying to motivate people
Wonderful.
to kill animals and not wound them.
Yep.
And there's different ways of doing it. So, but
Yeah.
so, okay, so we're back. So you look for the arrow.
So we
Couldn't find the arrow.
look for arrow,
So
look
now
at
we're
the-
panicking because it should have zipped right through.
Yeah, and where
We
from,
know it.
from where it zipped through, it would have went because the arrow kind of.
Okay, so maybe you could've-
we're in a stand that's 8 feet off the ground. It's a tower, that cage,
Yeah.
and the hill, the food plot's kind of crested.
So it could've run over
there
the
was
top.
only about maybe 2 foot of elevation drop from where the blind is to where the deer is standing. So if it goes straight through, there's some brush on the other side, and it.
So you weren't
brush.
shocked. It wasn't like it's going to go right there.
It went. No.
But you find blood right off the bat.
Blood right
Now,
off
was
the
there
bat.
blood right where you hit it?
Right where he hit it.
Yep.
It was right there.
And on both sides, so we know we got passed through.
Yep.
Yes.
Both
Did you
sides,
look for bubbles? Did you look for
so-
spray? Was it just clumps? How wide? Because
So-
we got to
so
be
we-
specific on this.
Yep. So we start going, right. We're seeing
Yep.
it, and
In your
and
mind, it's a done deal.
It started. It's here. The blood trail goes to here, and just like he said, we saw blood coming out both sides, and we see bubbles.
Yep.
Yeah.
We see bubbles in the
Which is
blood,
good.
which is good. It gets to the logging road, blood. I'm like, this is great.
You're up looking ahead for the dead deer.
I'm
For
looking
sure.
ahead.
He's
Yeah.
looking ahead.
These guys are looking down.
We got-
I waste my time. I know he's right there somewhere.
So
Just
from
went down
where
the
the
hill a
deer was shot to where he got out of the food plots, probably about 40 or 40 yards, we'll say. So you can't see him anymore.
Then
Go another 30 yards,
and then
he
there's
stopped.
pools of blood. Pools.
I could tell he stopped. You can tell when a deer stops, right? And I'm like, a lot of blood.
In one spot.
And I'm like,
Was it still out of both sides?
still out of both
Still out of
sides.
both sides.
And I'm like, this is good. Where is he? Right? Like he's gonna just jump out. He's had him. He's got right there, almost in that exact spot, and they just kind of stop, and then they tip over. He ain't tipped over, and he went down into. So now he goes off the logging road.
Yep, now
And I
he's
always
going
call
down.
it like, okay, a deer made a decision. That's not good, in my eyes. When he stopped, he could have, did it.
So he ran
He
40
ran
yards
about-
and stopped.
No, 40 yards.
After he was
about
hit.
70 yards.
He got hit.
70 yards.
He got shot. He ran 70 yards and stopped.
Stopped.
Okay, that's not shocking.
Not shocking.
It should generally be 100, but a
Yep.
70 is
So
not
he
shocking.
made a decision and moved and went.
Made a turn.
Made a turn. As soon as he made that turn and come around, again, there's still bubbles in the blood. I saw a kernel of corn in the blood. So then,
Odd.
Then
Spidey sense starts happening here. Like, Jack, now I'm
But
going.
if he would have got shot, you wouldn't have all that blood though either.
No.
So
Correct.
you couldn't add 2 and 2 together.
I know, but
it made you doubt.
It made me doubt, and then I think I asked him again, how far quartering was he? How far? Just
Yeah.
kind of going through everything. We get down, and he kind of got down to a paralleling trail to the logging road, and we went another 40 yards. And I said, I don't like this. Still bleeding.
we should
still
only
bleeding.
took him 100, but we
So
took
70 and 40, we're at 110 now?
We're at 110.
still consistent blood.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
consistent.
But he's
110.
not there, and I can see ahead of me 20, 30
Yes.
yards.
You
He's
can
not
see
there.
ahead. This is in
This
the
is
non-logged
60.
area, right? So he's about 110
Yeah.
to 130 yards.
Something's wrong.
Something's wrong,
Something's wrong.
and I can see up another 80. And now we're about
glassing.
150 yards from the neighbor's fence line. Great neighbors. I mean, they're great neighbors, but we just don't go on someone else's unless we call them. And, so I said, something isn't right. Let's go back. All we got's time. It's beauty about shooting them in the morning,
Yeah,
right?
it sure
All
is.
you got is
Sure is.
Oh, you got
Sure is.
So we go back. Then I drop my hat right there. We go back to the truck.
Get out of there.
We get out of there. We go back to the house.
We filled the blind fit or a water hole.
Yeah, so we just figured out what are we gonna do to keep us busy, right?
So you just
so,
filled
you'll
some
come-
time.
so
How
let's-
long were you planning on
we
waiting?
were planning on waiting 4 hours, which worked out good. I showed you Jack's Precision 22, and
So
my
you went and
buddy
started playing.
We went and got the scope set up on that at my buddy's place,
Yep.
and just
Killing
no excuse to let's just go back
Because
right?
you'll convince yourself.
You
that-
wouldn't have wanted me to be there because I'd be wanting to jump on it.
Oh, I
So-
wanted to jump on it.
Yeah.
So we got a hold of the neighbors, and the son and his brother, 2 sons, said, "Can we come with you?" Sure.
Yeah, because they've
So
been after this dude.
They
They've
were
got
at-
it on their
They were
their
hunting
cameras
it
too.
that morning too, so they were on the their property, and this they were after this one, and it was kind of cool. They were so excited that
They were?
they
Yeah,
were.
they were
Wow,
They
so
what
were.
wonderful
And,
neighbors.
Yeah,
and,
they're great neighbors.
Wonderful neighbors.
and so
Hats
we
off
shot
to
him
them.
at 8:30,
Yeah.
8:30.
You got on the blood trail a half hour later.
Half hour
We actually-
later, and then we left, and then we said we'll meet you back here at 3.
And you walked the trail all the way. The blood was
So
no problem.
Not
yeah,
a problem to
oh
follow.
yeah,
And
not-
you left even though the blood trail's still going.
even
you just
though
pulled it.
yep, we just pulled
Go
it.
back.
Something wasn't right, and
You should have been there.
so we got back there at 3. By the time the neighbor boys got there, call them boys, they're both
They're
adults.
grown men.
It was about 3:30. So then we get up to the blood trail. We started about 4. So by the time we walked back up to the
At 4. So from the time he hit it until we're picking it up the second time is how many hours? Is that?
6
6 hours.
6
hours.
hours.
Okay.
6
A
hours.
little bit more.
So
Okay.
so
So now your mind, now tell me your mindset.
my
You're
mind.
thinking liver shot, could be gut shot, because you had to justify all that blood.
Right.
And yet you had to square the distance that it went.
Right.
So what
My-
were you adding together?
My thought was liver. My thought was liver, 1 lung, because everybody's
Okay.
on
Sure.
1 lung they
Yeah.
go a long
Yeah.
ways. And when he said quartering, maybe
Yeah.
he was quartering a little
Yeah.
bit further than I
Sure.
thought.
That makes
there's
sense.
there's a corn, there's
Something.
some bubbles, and there's a lot
Makes
of blood.
sense.
So that's what was
Makes
going
sense.
through my mind. So it's like, okay, you liver shoot a deer. I mean, you know as well as I do.
Yeah,
if
that
you
makes
nick a liver, he's gonna die. You just gotta give him time.
Yeah.
I mean, they're gonna die. So, so we get back on the blood, and I'm.
By the way, just to stop you, I think you've done everything beautiful. Just to give you a compliment.
Just waiting and done.
Your judgment on all that and where you think he hit it and all that. I mean, just your experience really good.
So
It's
It's
hard.
excellent.
It's hard to do. In that
Well, like I said, I wouldn't want to be just
I had
because
to
I
keep
know
these
stuff
two- I
doesn't
had to
mean I
keep
do it
these
right.
two
I'm
busy.
antsy. I want to go.
Yeah.
I was the only kind of sane one because these two were chomping at the bit because they're in the stand
Yeah. Now-
together.
We
And,
saw him bleeding.
Now I was starting to
Yeah.
second guess myself. Like
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
go
took
ahead,
him
Jim.
130 yards, and I thought I hit him perfect. And they shouldn't go 130 yards.
hit perfect.
Hit perfect.
So now what are you thinking then?
So we get back. We're kind of we hang out there for a half hour. We look at a deer anatomy chart.
Oh, it pulled up deer cast right
Yep.
with the chart. I sent you that photo where I thought I'm like, Jack, is this? And we're watching the videos. It's like, Dad. He goes, Dad, that's where I hit that deer. That's where I hit that deer. And I'm like,
And it's bolt.
it's like, well, that says double. That says double lung. I mean, and he's quartering, perfect.
So it's getting even better as it goes through.
So then,
Right.
so-
Angling away.
yeah. So he was doubting. Well, then we're looking at all the videos. He goes, Dad, that is where I hit that deer. Like, okay, I believe you, right? And but nothing hurts to leave. So we go get busy for a while. We come back. We meet the neighbor there. We get up there about 4, and we start trailing this deer. And at no time did I speed up a ton or slow down. I was at a walking
We were a
pace.
consistent walk. We could see blood the entire time.
And when I get into deer track mode, I'm don't really know what's going on behind me, but I'm like blood, and I'm always looking forward, and I point at it. So then if I'm looking forward and I'm walking, the blood's here, and then okay, I'm pointing, pointing. I really never slowed down. Like I'm not running, but it was
Was it bleeding out the entrance side? more
bleeding
than
out
the
both
exit?
sides. It was out both sides. Not
Now
but
when he slowed down, it's not spraying.
It's
now
not
it's
as-
going to be
not
down.
as
right,
Yes.
Yeah.
right.
Here.
But it's on both sides of
It's
the trail.
steady.
It's steady.
It's easy to follow.
You're not having
And
as much bubbles.
And
in it,
then there was a couple times where I went here, and the trail V's like this, and I went 2 steps, and I go, oh no, okay, it's back here.
There was
it's
a couple times where we thought there was just more blood there, so we thought he looked around a little
yeah,
bit.
we looked around a little bit, like it's got to be here somewhere.
Yeah.
and I keep looking. Every once in a
How
while.
far are we now?
So now
half mile
So we're
at this point.
He went all the way along the top. He got to the neighbors, which was 150 yards. As soon as he got to that fence line, the bluff goes down. So now he's heading downhill right towards the truck.
Which I think is a good thing.
He's angling down this hill, and I call it a hill. It's a bluff. I mean, it's
Steep.
It's
Steep.
steep.
Is he
But
on a trail?
he's on a trail.
Yep.
So he's making a decision to stay on the trail, and it's a pretty big trail that goes down. So he goes down, and he's coming to the woods is like a rectangle. It comes like this, and he's going to get out. He's angling right towards
Correct.
here. He gets to here.
There's
There's no more woods. He's got to cross a valley, which there's down bluff
And then
country.
you'll be able to see him a long
Right.
ways away.
In bluff country, there's usually fields on the bottom, fields on
Yep.
top, but he's getting there, and he's got to not just go down.
He's got to go up.
He's got to go back
Got to
up
go back
because it's all
It should
cut
be right
cornfield.
there.
It's a cut cornfield right now,
Or he's going to be dead in the field.
or he'll be
Yeah.
dead in the field. Well, we get to
One way or
there,
another, it's looking good.
blood goes right to the field.
I was walking right next to you. You thought it was over once we got it to that.
I was
cornfield.
I was like, this is not good. He's crossing broad daylight. He's down.
When you got down there,
and
you looked and he's not there.
That hole from the time we shot him to there, I would say is 3/4 of a mile.
Yeah.
And you got your Onyx map.
I got
Tracker
Onyx
going
on.
on.
Yep,
So we're knowing
Yep,
this.
I
You
got
started
Onyx
it
right
after maybe
at
200
130
yards,
yards. Yep, 130 to 200 yards. I'm like, oh, I got to turn on Onyx. I use Onyx every day. It's whatever. Turn it on. Why not? It tells me turn my track on, and I go. So we're about 3/4 of a mile when we hit this field, and I'm like, he's just gone way too far. But he hasn't stopped much, and he hasn't laid down.
You never laid down.
So
to
now
this
you're at
point.
least thinking if he was liver or gut shot, he should have laid down.
Should have
Yeah.
laid
You
down.
guys didn't push him to make him keep going. You gave him enough time.
Yep.
Good
There was
point.
no
So
bed.
so from the time we got back on the blood trail, the blood was dry
Yeah.
on the lead. So we know we're not pushing him. That's what you
Yeah,
the way
there
you
you
said
go.
it there. We're,
Yeah,
we're
there you go.
there's no wet blood. It's dry. You know, where he did stop a couple times. Again, he didn't lay down, but where he did stop a couple times, there was some pools
Sure.
there, but the outside of those pools were dry. So we get to the cornfield. I'm like, this ain't good. But it's a cut cornfield, pretty easy to track across a cut cornfield. Never slowed down again. There it is. There it is. There it is. I mean, we're
And
seeing
then-
it, you know.
And then
Then go
the
ahead.
road we drove in
our
on is
access
next
road.
to that cornfield. Where we parked, we drove in on that road to park, and there's blood on the road.
On the road, so he had crossed it before.
So
we
he
got
kind of
back
took
there.
a big loop.
He crossed it and then you drove over his blood trail.
Yes.
Yeah, we
yes.
drove
So
over his blood
while
trail.
we were gone doing, keeping these guys busy, he had done all this. I think
At one time.
I want to say all at one time. I don't know how fast. Cause was he walking? Was he running? I mean, he was moving. So crosses that. It's just a 2-lane crush rock road, but he crosses that. Now he's got to go up
He's going up.
because he can't go down anymore. He's in the bottom of a. So he went up right on that road, and it's pretty steep. And he gets up it again.
And
then
then he
he
should
goes
start
up,
bleeding
yeah.
more, you would think, as he's going uphill.
He does.
Bleeding. He's
Still on
bleeding.
both
So
sides.
now
You're
he's got-
wondering, why is he not dead? There's enough blood here on the
And
ground.
as happy as we were that he was going downhill, now it's like, well, he's going up.
And
Now it's dry. It's dry, so we
It's
know it was
dry.
a while ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he gets on a trail, and he starts to head to the northwest, and he gets to it. These trails down on these bluffs, they're all on I call it a parallel line or an elevation line. They get to a point, and then they can take the same elevation, maybe gain a little bit more. Well, he walks almost in a straight line to one of the elevation line trails, if you want to call it that. That'll start taking him to the top of this other bluff.
And the guys we were with, it was their property that we were going onto, and they said they saw him a lot where they thought he was going, which he was going home.
Yep. So this deer was trying to head back home from what we could figure. They had a ton of trail camera photos on their property on this bluff.
It was a water.
Yep. They have a water hole down there. Yeah. They have but it's a bedding mecca. It's an awesome piece of property. So we come around this bluff, and I'm on the blood, still bleeding, still dry.
I'm with him.
I'm bleeding, and the landowner there he is, and
You got all excited,
and I'm like, oh, he's gonna be
and
dead.
then all of a
This is
sudden he's
great.
still alive.
And he's sitting there.
Now we're up on top of the hill now?
No, we're
he never made the top.
We're 3/4 of the way, and there's a bench, and he's laying right on the
Like a
bench.
bench.
How far away were you when he was the deer from you? When he
50
spotted?
yards. But he's up through some blackberry brush up in.
Is he looking at you?
He wasn't at
He
that
was
point.
looking away and he was nodding.
He was doing this. He was nodding.
Like you think someone's falling asleep.
Yes.
Sleep.
Yes.
Walking, yeah.
So I'm like,
And there was 2 does with him.
2 does with him.
Yeah.
yeah. I was focused on him.
You were focused on him. The
So-
2 does were off to the left side of him.
So he's doing this. I remember seeing him doing this. He's not looking at us. We're 50 yards away.
Now, is he not seeing you because he couldn't, or is it because he was dying and he was out of it? Is he dizzy?
we had 6 people there.
We had 6 people with him.
My mom was with us,
So
and then the
there's
2
no
later-
way he could have not
he
heard
heard us.
you
It
or
was
seen
it was dry,
There's no way.
crunchy, So
A normal deer
I-
boogied out of
But the
there.
does were there though.
those were there.
Yep.
Why did they boogie?
They did.
They did.
They did.
Yeah, I didn't see the does. I was
They took
focused
off
on
and
him.
he stayed.
He was just laying down there, and again, that's you kind of stuff gets imprinted in your mind.
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
just remember him doing this. So I had the crossbow at that point, carrying it.
I was
while we were
carrying
going.
the quiver.
And I said, Jack, give me an arrow. I had it cocked already, and I said, I'm gonna try to sneak in. Just get another arrow into him. Just get another hole into him. Great, right?
Starts army crawling up.
So I started getting up, and I had this giant oak tree in between myself and the deer. And I'm going, and these guys are trying to get my attention. Well,
The
he
deer
had
was looking right
he
at
had
him.
snapped his head around. I couldn't see the deer at that
Who?
point.
The deer snapped
The
his
deer
head?
did.
Yeah.
Snapped his head around what?
To look at
To
me.
look at you.
But he couldn't see you because you're behind the tree.
I'm behind the tree. And
He
maybe
can hear you though.
He can hear me because now I'm trying to get. There's blackberry brush.
So when we're saying he's dizzying out of it, he wasn't that dizzy.
He
wasn't
too.
that dizzy.
He came too. And when I come around like this
to shoot.
shoot,
How far away are you now?
I got to about 30 yards, but there was a little opening there, and I'm
But
like,
you know,
I'm
as
like
soon
this,
as I clear
as
it
soon
back.
as and then I see him looking at me. I'm like,
Both ears up,
oh yeah,
looking alert.
he's looking alert, and he jumps up,
And he runs.
and
And you
He
couldn't
doesn't
even throw
really-
an arrow.
I couldn't get an arrow at him. He wasn't running fast, but he got up, and he only went about 40 yards, or he went 40 yards and got out of sight.
How fast did he go?
Not super
Not
fast.
super-
He
But
wasn't
not
walking, but he
He
wasn't
wasn't
running.
stumbling like he's
No,
going to die.
no, he was
So
not.
now you're really shook up.
Yeah, so he's and as soon as he gets around, it's a pretty big point. So he gets 40 yards and he's out of sight. Like he's now around the point, and he'd be going backwards. So now
So
it's
we
like
kind of all meet up and
We parlayed.
Yeah.
talk about our options.
What are we gonna do?
Now there's the three of you and
And
the two neighbors.
my mom and the two neighbor boys.
Yeah.
So
What are
I'm
we
like-
gonna do? Are we going to press him, or are we gonna let him go more?
And
That
So
was-
it was discussed.
decisions.
It was
Life
discussed.
decisions,
Do we go back and do those two boys grab their bow? They know their property. Do they grab their two bows and three of us go up on top and we walk it through, or how, we were trying to think because what do we do here? So I said we kind of came up with, well, it does open up around here. Let's go around the point.
See if we can see him.
And see. I already had a buddy of mine does drone
I
deer
was just going
recovery
to ask,
also.
you haven't talked about drones
Yep.
or dogs.
We lined it up before.
I lined up as we
Just
were,
in case, like
just a
before.
buddy of
You
mine
get
has
a heads up alert. To
has
a
a
friend.
thermal drone, and he was on alert.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let me know if you need me to come in and whatever. So we had him on. We talked about that. Do we back out of here? Come, fly the drone up at midnight to see.
Do we press him or do we not?
So we get around that point,
Leave
and decision was made. Let's go around the point and see if we can't see down over the hill. And we
Get around there.
Get around the
He's
point.
bleeding again.
Now you walking ahead of everybody because you've got the weapon.
Yes. I'm walking ahead. He's right behind me.
You're
And-
pussyfooting it real slow.
Real slow. Where he had just got out of sight, he stopped, and he's bleeding there. He's not standing there now.
He laid
but he's-
down again.
But he stood there a little bit. We looked up, and there's a bed, and there's no deer. It's like he's hurting. He is really hurting.
So he's still bleeding the whole time.
Oh yeah, he's bleeding. So he's right there. He stopped, and I looked back at Dad. I said, he only ran. We've seen him for 40, run another 10 or whatever, and he stopped. I said, with 6 people, and he only ran 50 yards and stopped
It's
again.
time to press him.
I said, I'm going to press forward a little bit.
So we
more.
walked like
Now wait,
Third.
you went there. Okay, now I'm gonna
Okay.
make sure I get this
Yep,
right.
yep.
You're seeing him alive, or you're seeing the bed.
No,
You're seeing
come
him
around
at
the
40
corner.
see the bed first.
See, first we saw where he stopped. He stopped. He had stood there, not bedded yet, and because you could tell it was kind of pooling blood.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
out both sides. Then about 10 feet in front of that, there was leaves like where he had bedded down. And he was only there for a second.
He didn't want to bed down, but he needed to bed
He
down.
needed
So
to bed down.
He had to.
So
But he got up then.
yes, so
Probably
I
as
saw
you were
that.
coming closer.
Yep, I saw that. I took another 10 yards, and I looked up in between the pines, and I see
And
him,
there's a little hill,
and I see him
and then it
laying
goes down.
facing away.
He's facing away, not
Facing-
turned towards
not
you.
turned towards
You'd
me.
think he'd have been turned
And his
towards
head
you.
is
Nodding
turned.
again.
His head is turned, and then he turned his head and he looked down. He never looked back.
I don't think
So
he
it's
can
like
go
he-
anymore.
His head was up.
His head was up.
So you think he's close to death?
I think so, but I didn't want to chance it. And we listen to a lot of podcasts, Jack and
Yeah.
I do, and we listen to a lot of.
Well,
So
we
how
were,
far away is he now?
So right now he's at.
Now you the only one that could see him?
I could see him.
I
and
could
then-
see him,
Yep, he
and
could see
then the
him.
two guys behind us could see him. Grandma was in the back. She kind of,
They just stayed
they,
back.
you guys kind of stayed back.
He stayed
Yep.
with the blood.
Yep.
And
These guys hopscotched to him.
So how far is the deer?
so right now he's about 50, 60 yards. And out of shooting range because it's still kind
Yeah,
of brushy
yeah.
in there. So I said, Jack, come with. We're gonna army crawl, and we had what I was getting at. We just listened to a podcast on a sniper,
Yep.
and it's kind of weird where they say they take. I didn't exactly do this, but
Arm from here to there when they're crawling should take 30 seconds.
and then here to
and
here,
then 30 seconds, leg 60, other leg 60,
So,
and then they scoot forward.
Again,
for
I
60.
wasn't doing that, but that was kind of in my head that I need to be stealth. I don't want to jump this deer again. I want him to die. He needs to die. He's hurting. He needs to go down.
He's hurt unit bad.
So we're army crawling. I get to 26 yards, and he's still same thing. His head is fixed, looking downhill.
What was his ear position?
I
Probably didn't pay attention. to
I
that.
didn't. But I what I could see was, so he's laying like his butt's to me, and then his head's like looking down, so I could see like his butt, back, and neck. He's looking downhill. So I'm like, I'm just gonna get another arrow into him.
His head's up though.
His head's
It's not
up.
laying down.
So I'm down. When I'm down in the army crawl, I could see him 26 yards. Okay, so I get up on my knees. There's brush all over. And I'm like, oh, well, why don't I just shoot him out of a prone position? I had to actually put the crossbow underneath a log. I made sure there was, you could see or whatever. And I'm like, well, he's right there. And I shoot, and you could hear it, right? Hear the or whatever, the thud, or not the thud, but you could hear when you
So
hit.
your
hit
shot
here.
was straight away.
Yes, I was.
And where were you trying to hit him? Obviously anywhere you
in
could put blood in him.
Yeah,
But where specifically did you?
I was trying to put one in his butt, running forward.
So
right?
you tried to do a Texas heart shot.
Yeah.
You're right. Just to get another arrow in him.
Yep.
If he's bleeding out of another hole, he's not going to go because he's bled. I think
I
more
thought
than
he
enough
was
to
bled
die
out.
already, right?
Yeah.
So he gets up and he tears off, and I didn't hear it, but the guys behind her said they heard it crash.
He crashed under a log.
And then just dead calm. It's like, all right. Well, we get up there. Well, right where I hit him, and the arrow had passed through him. And I'll tell you
From
where.
back to front.
Yes.
What?
There were I put 4 holes in it.
He put 4 holes in. He sent it through the back strap.
So it went through the backstrap, come underneath the spine. There's a big artery that goes underneath there. Yeah. Come out the backstrap.
Through his neck and through his jugular.
Come out his jugular, other side. He went 40 yards and he was piled up. Right? I mean, it just. So I put 4 holes
still
in,
bleeding.
and that arrow went through him. That arrow went through
But that arrow, if he would have never been hurt, the shot you made, he might have only made 40 yards anyway. If he was
Right.
perfectly healthy. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, this is a wild story.
So we get up there, and obviously.
Where did you hit him, Jack? You wanted to look at him.
Yeah,
Crazy
we
to
turned
see.
him over, and I go,
Right away.
That's
right away,
perfect.
that's the first thing.
I looked right at him. I said, "You shoot every deer from now on, right where you
Right
shot that
there.
deer." I don't know how else to say it. How do you tell someone not
Was
to
it
shoot?
quartering away a little bit?
It was.
One, so photos, yeah,
Yep.
one rib.
But you're giving me all the
Yep,
photos
yep.
of all this we're
So,
going to put on there.
so, I mean, you flip him over, and it's like, well, that's an awesome exit. You flip him over, well, that's an awesome entrance.
Yeah.
That's where we need you, because I don't know.
Some of these
I'm
things
not-
just cannot be
I mean, it's-
explained.
No.
Well, I mean,
they're not.
between all of us, we've shot probably 250 deer, and I've never ever seen anything like that, ever,
Yeah.
ever.
So
Now,
the-
I've heard of one other story, and that was with Tom Indebro, and Pat Reeves shot the Moses buck down in Buffalo County, and they had it on film, and there was a hit there, almost in the same spot, and they didn't get that deer. The neighbor had a picture of it the same fall. He shot him the next year. Same buck.
yeah, you just.
But
Yeah.
see, for
But
me,
you can't explain. I can't.
yeah, well,
explain
for me, obviously for me, I need the organs to physically
Right,
see it, which
right.
we don't have. But by your podcast, this has given me the start for people to see
Yeah.
this, and
Yes.
then I want to blow this up what I can, so all these other stories can get back to me, and then the people can start doing the examination process
Yeah.
to see it. But now
Yes.
let's
So-
put you on. Okay, go ahead.
So just
Yeah, yeah.
so we get up to him. This deer weighs with the guts in. This deer weighs I don't know how many guts are. What do guts usually weigh in a deer?
You know, we just did ours lately, and I didn't figure out our percentages of the
Because
ones we did, so
he
I don't
weighed
know.
224.8 dressed.
Dress.
We had, I think it
Dressed.
was 20-some% that we did. So,
So-
if you had- so there's 40 pounds there,
Big.
another 4, so 50 pounds or so.
Big body deer, right? I mean, this is a big
Well over
5-year-old.
250 with the guts in.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
team.
So we get him out. We don't. I don't know, we don't like to gut them in the woods, so we drug them out.
Right.
We drug,
Why don't you like
especially,
them in the woods?
especially because it's not on our, it's not on our property. They wanted
want
that
to
deer.
and they're gonna be hunting up in there, so
Yeah,
it's like, hey, let's
I
get them
got
down
you.
there.
Yep.
So we
Yep.
get them. We actually drug them out to the middle of their cornfield so they could shoot coyotes. You know,
I
and
gotcha.
hunt.
Yep.
And we get down there and we start gutting this thing out, and
It's
so when I, pulled the guts out, got in the chest cavity. There, he didn't break the diaphragm, right? I mean, he hit it
In front of the diaphragm.
front of the diaphragm.
100%.
One thing.
Now, you guys are all on the record, even though we can't show it, you could sign a subpoena,
100%.
a sworn statement
Yes.
that you did
100%.
this. Now we got 3 of you. Okay.
And I've got-
This
I've got-
is important for me right now.
We have photos of where the hole is in the
Yep.
deer.
So the other thing I noticed, that arrow went in and out of the deer
like that.
this way,
Flat.
not this way. I don't know if that makes a difference, but it did. It went that way. So it went in and come out like
And
that.
you have that documented with your
Yep.
photos. That
So-
Which we're going to have that we're going to put on all
So
this,
and this is the
So
part.
this is about-
Again, I gotta say, I didn't take photos. I don't know why, because everything about
It
this
was-
deer was dumbfounded me.
But
anyway.
you do have the photos of the in and out of
Yes.
the deer.
Yes.
So
deer.
I pulled the heart and lungs out
The
of the deer,
lungs
and the
were
lungs
this big and
all
black.
all collapsed, and they were black. It was.
I don't know
and-
how.
And there was a hole, the bottom of them, through one and out the other. Not nicked
Okay,
one.
let's go. I want to.
Okay.
I want. Once you said that, that's a hemothorax. My mind went to that. So let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
So you pulled them out. They're black. That's just
Yes.
blood that's in there. And you
Yep,
call it,
yep.
There's 4 types of pneumothorax, and a hemothorax is one of them. Just means blood in the lungs.
Okay.
Which we can get in. Okay, keep going now.
Yep. So, what I was saying is, not a nick of the lung, not. There was that size hole through one lung in the bottom, and that size hole through the other side on the bottom.
How he made it is beyond me.
No.
Now, where in as far as back and the lung, how far back was his shot?
It was middle. It was middle of the lungs.
It,
So you
Just the bottom?
absolutely smoked them, period.
Yes.
Yes.
Because like I said, they come together, the lungs, the mediastinum, and then there's the wings, but he hit right through them,
yes.
right through them.
Yes.
Like
right
I'd say, like these are the bottom of the lungs
the
here.
bottom of the lungs. I thought, if we're looking at this, I thought the hit.
Yeah, where was he from the heart? How about saying that?
I believe he was behind the heart,
But not much.
but
Not much.
He came close.
Yes.
Had to, yes.
Where
Yes.
was he height-wise from the heart?
If this is the bottom of the lungs, I know it. I would say it was right. It was right there. So, and it was angling forward. Right, the deer was
Had to
actually.
just
I went-
miss the
The
heart.
deer was facing the other way.
Just missed it.
Just missed
Yeah.
it.
Cause we thought we nicked or I nicked the heart, but Dad nicked it with his knife.
Yeah, that was me.
When he was
No,
field dressing.
yeah, but I showed him. I waited till he come down. I said, "Dad, look at this."
I couldn't believe it.
And
So now all 3 of you are on the record that both lungs were hit with a 2-inch, technically just a
Just a
16th
hair on
less
it.
than
Yep,
2 inch.
hair on
This particular broadhead
that exact broadhead right there.
went through both lungs 100%. It didn't nick it, went all the way through. there.
All the way
100%.
Yes.
Okay, so that's on the record. So on that, there I have
100%.
it.
So, so yeah, then we get the deer back here. I took photos that I'd sent, and I took photos that I sent you of the inside of the rib cage.
Yep.
And I don't know the exact. You'll see it on the photo if you.
Do you think they're good enough you can go back and count and see
Yeah,
which
yeah.
rib it was?
Yeah, I
We'll
can
put
show
all
you.
this documented when
Yes,
we're done,
yes.
because there's a
And
technical
so-
part of the story, but then
Yeah.
there's going back, getting the facts.
Yes,
Like a
right.
crime.
And so you talk about quartering. How much was
Yes.
the deer quartering?
Yes.
You could tell that he went in. That arrow went in here, and one rib forward, it came out.
Which
So
is-
that's all he was quartering. You know, wasn't much. He was actually.
But it's all going better as it's going
yes.
Show him where it exited on the,
Yeah, I mean, it exited right.
if I can get up here. I mean, it's right here's the exit.
So you missed the heart. Literally, if the blade would have spun the other way, it might have hit the heart.
It might-
maybe.
it might-
Literally,
yeah.
it's that close.
Yes. And that would go and from Onyx when we got to the deer where final resting spot was 0.98 miles.
So let's go through the facts and put them together so we have it recorded. He
Yeah.
went 0.98 miles from where he was hit plus
200
yards.
yards. So I say a mile or what it is.
So we went a
Yep,
mile
yep.
plus there. You came across the deer 7 hours after he was hit and he was still alive.
Yep.
Yes.
After that time, he went, when he was bumped after 7 hours, he went another 50 yards, 100, how far did he
I would say he went another 100.
100 yards on his own after being bumped. He was
Yep.
then shot in the bed a half hour later, because it took you time to do your belly crawl to get that shot. I would take it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
wasn't that long.
It wasn't-
so 15 minutes
15
later.
minutes.
15,
Yep.
20 minutes.
And he ran 40 yards after that on a shot that would not have surprised you. If he was not wounded at all, he would have died within 40 yards.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the fact you would think he would have got up and lifted up a little bit and dropped right there, because you hit the blood vessel under the backbone of the aorta. That's the largest blood vessel on the animal.
Yeah.
And so if you cut that and going from front to back, you're hitting this, that, and everything going forward.
Yep.
And he still made it that 40 yards.
still made it that.
So now what has been, how this was, right now, we're in the middle of December, not quite. You shot him in October, November, December, so this is about, what, 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
So 6 weeks. So with you've talked to everybody that you know in the industry, what is the understanding you have heard of how this could be? Tell me what you think. Because remember, what started this, is my elk story, right?
Right.
So, and that's how come
Right.
hearing this, it's like, yes, because I'm wanting to take this to people way smarter, knowledgeable than me, and this
Yeah.
is what we want to find out. So what's your thoughts?
And the reason I took the photos right away is because a buddy of mine that we talk about, he does the necropsy, and he's like, why? How'd this deer go that far? And he does it on all the deer, and he's just curious, and that's when. To be honest with you, I had my own theories on it.
What's your thoughts now?
Here was my thought process, and this
Yeah.
is after I listened to your podcast. You talked about puncturing the chest, and what stuck with me is you got he's got 4 or 2 inch coming out one side, 2 inch coming out the other. How did he not lose pressure? How did he not and he's got 2 holes in and out.
Yeah.
So my theory was that he's a 260-pound deer on the hoof that is right. Maybe he's got 2 to 3 days of losing weight, but he's at his peak weight, peak performance weight.
Yeah, then October before the rut gets going. Yep.
And I mean, when you start, there's fat on the ribs like this, and did he have enough? Because that blade that went through horizontal instead of vertical, did that help close it up so he could get compression?
But there's blood coming out.
So then when he runs,
going out, air's going to come
Air's
back in.
coming back in.
Yes.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
And that is the thing. See, on my elk, I busted the blade and he quit and no air came in. So if he clots up, I can understandable. I could say that's adjustment. But in your situation, that blood's coming out.
it's coming out.
Yes.
And it did the whole way.
Yep.
So what has anybody else? What else have people told you?
I've had you sure you hit 2 lungs, right?
And that's verified.
Yes.
Okay.
And that yes.
The
we did.
dog people that track deer, if you talk to them,
Yeah.
they would call this, I guarantee you what they'll call this. You check around here because you're kind of in the area around Eau Claire. My son lives. I know them.
Yep.
They're going to call it a zombie deer.
Okay.
That's a technical term that you talk to dog trackers, go online and ask them. Everyone that I've talked to that I know of, and one is a veterinarian in your area. If you want to talk to a veterinarian that tracks it, her name is Amber, and she's out of, I believe it's Baldwin.
Okay.
So it's right down the road from you, right? So when I interviewed her for a year ago, she's not doing much of it now because she's working on another doctor, what she's doing. But they call them zombie deer, and I'm just telling you what they say. Remember, I'm an investigative reporter. I'm coming at this trying to learn. I'm not a know-it-all, that's for sure.
We are in
So they claim that they get adrenaline and vitamin K. That vitamin K is a thing that can help clot. So I did work with a doctor on a pig hunt, and he's the one who told me about that vitamin K and clotting can cause something to clot up. So what I can do is just give some other scientific facts to say possibilities, hypotheses, things that are there. So the vitamin K has to do with the blood clot, but in your situation, it wasn't clotting, it was still on the ground. There's no sign that it ever quit bleeding, and so that clotting was not an issue. The fact of getting into the pneumothorax, which we should talk about, the fact the blood's coming out would make you think that's not true. But now here's the catch on this. And the question I have that I don't think will ever be answered, but is this. When a deer is shot through both lungs and it dies as a complication of, a medical expert can tell you 50 things, but basically there's two major principles. One is blood loss, and the other one is lung collapse. Okay, so and it's a combination of both. So what percentage did that deer die that they generally run? I mean, if you double lung a deer, they generally run 100 yards and they're dead. They drop in 6 seconds. Yeah. I mean, that's just about the rule of thumb of what it is. They run, they fall down, they try to get up there, what they do there. Well, as far as the lung collapse, basically what happens is, like you said, when they breathe, it blows out, it sucks back in. So then what happens is that air comes in there. And again, this is your podcast, so I'll just try to make this as basic as I can. You heard the other one. Right. But they don't pop like balloons. It's just the opposite. Because you think about this, your diaphragm brings air in and out, right? Well, when you breathe out, your diaphragm's forward, you're getting rid of your carbon dioxide, right? You're getting rid of that before you breathe in your oxygen to do this. What keeps your lungs, they're not as inflated as much because they get bigger and smaller during the breathing process. What keeps them inflated at all when it breathes out? Because your lungs want to have neutral air pressure. Because right now, we're breathing, whatever atmospheric pressure is we're breathing is going into the inside of our lungs. But what happens is when we breathe in, all that's happening is your diaphragm is pulling back. And your rib muscles, the rib meat that you eat, those are called the intercostal muscles. They pull out. And what all that does is, when that happens, it takes a given space. And I don't want, that given space, let's say there's 100 molecules in that given space. When all of a sudden that space gets bigger, those molecules, there's less of them size-wise, percentage-wise. So that creates negative pressure. So now inside your lungs, there's less pressure there per volume of size. And the air you're breathing then is a higher air pressure, and it shoots right in. So your lungs are constantly going through positive and negative air pressure. Well, what happens is, what keeps your lungs out when you breathe out, so that they don't collapse at all, is there's a negative air pressure from the outside of your lung and on the inside of the rib cage. There's a membrane there. So it's called a pleural membrane, and there's a liquid in there. And that negative pressure, and how that's caused is a whole other thing. But that negative pressure, in again, a layman's mind, it's a vacuum or a suction that keeps the lungs sucked to the outside. So even though you breathe out, the outside of the lungs are sucked there, which like when they tell you the dead zone below the back, right. Well, the lungs are sucked up tight like that. So the lungs actually go higher than the backbone.
Like right there. Yep, like on right here. This is higher.
And the lungs fill all that up. And I've got that documented. My son just shot the deer. I've got that documented over and over in photos, in the blood, of all this. So that's documented as far as that's a myth. But what happens is, the long story short, is that vacuum that's on the outside that keeps them sucked out. When you shoot them, it's the air that gets in between that gap, between the outside of the lung and the inside of that rib cage, that breaks that suction. Like a tire, you got to break the seal. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. If you break that, then the lungs, as they blow out and more air comes in, that pressure when they run, it's the faster they run, the quicker they die.
The quicker they die.
Okay?
And he didn't take off very fast.
My elk ran and stopped and relaxed. Yes. What happens if you get shot, you're in a car accident? Stay calm. You don't want that heart to beat. So that's another thing you take notice of how he acts. But anyway, so when that pressure is broke, that air comes in, that collapses, and just picture, and when you find a deer, when you gut it, where are the lungs at? They're around the heart. They all go forward and they come down like that. So when that compresses, that moves the heart, and then the blood, it's compressed, the blood can't come from the head back down to circulate. So circulation stops, they get dizzy in their head, blood loss, you get dizzy in the head, down they go. But now, on the other hand, when they run with that diaphragm, it is possible when that diaphragm pulls out, that air that gets in there, there's a war going on from that air coming. Air just doesn't come in and collapse the lungs. When the diaphragm pulls back, it's going to push that air back out. So now we've got a fight going on. Who's going to win? Yeah. And that's how come what they tell you to do if you're in an accident. And my son had a pneumothorax with one lung and he would have died. I could show you this scar on his side. So I've lived this in my own son's life. If you say you get in a car accident and you're there and you've got a lung that's punctured there, you puncture a rib there and you collapse in the lung, they'll tell you to take a credit card and put it over the hole.
Seal it.
to seal it when you breathe in, so no air gets in, but when you breathe out, open it up to try to get that air out. They'll put a tube in there to be able to release it, but the tube's got a one-way valve on it, so no air can come in, but the air in there's got to get out. So what we can say of what we don't know why, but we can definitively say this. And again, this is in this kind of common sense, it's like, well, 2 + 2 is 4, dummy, but it says, if there was enough air in there to collapse his lungs, he would have died. The zombie deer and all that, I'm not an expert on that, but if you lose enough blood, you're going to die. It's just, I mean, so I'm buying science. I'm a born-again Christian. I believe the Bible, but I believe in science 100%. There's no contradiction in my mind. If those lungs are collapsed, that blood can't come back in there. It's going to die. So its lungs did not collapse. But when lungs collapse, it's not a balloon. They're blown up or they're not. It's how much they collapse, how much the pressure's there. So for whatever the reason, with a hole that big, because you're putting a rage-sized cut in. That's why rages are so effective.
Right.
You're putting that big hole in there. The other thing is blood loss. Now, on the blood loss, the other thing is when it shoots out, that's generally the lungs, that pressure can blow it out, or if you hit an artery. But you generally don't have the bigger arteries you get hit in the lungs, especially when you're lower there. The catch on an artery, though, is they're under greater pressure than a vein, because it's just like a pump going out. The closer to the pump, into its arteries, the blood goes away, veins, it comes back. But here's the weird thing about arteries. They have like a muscle around them. They can contract. So they'll bleed to death quicker. And there's a doctor who's a veterinarian. When I told you I raised the deer, our local neighbor is a veterinarian, and he raised deer. And he cut the femoral artery. That's the aorta. It goes in the back, down the back leg, the one that's hit there and they bleed. He hit that when he was doing surgery. And you think, game over. You got, It immediately pulled right in, and it shut itself right off. So there would be an instant, man, I hit it in the back leg, and the blood's coming out all over the place, and it quit. Well, the artery, they call it, I study them, and I don't see no muscle on them, but they'll contract like a heart, how our body is made to be. It just gives glory to God how this works. But it just sealed itself shut. So that's where you think one guy hits one time, it bleeds to death, you hit at the same spot. But for whatever that artery is, it just sealed itself shut. Now, you don't have that in lungs. Now, the fact you hit it lower is the clue that I don't have an answer for, that I'm going to tell you a story about, that I think can have, like a crime scene, a clue. Not an answer, but a clue. And here's a story. You talked about Lee and Tiffany, right? Mm-hmm. Their cameraman for them for years lives in Georgia. And remember I did that speaking down in Georgia this year? They traded me a pig hunt if I'd come speak down there, so I thought that was great. Well, they have a full-time cameraman, just like River's Edge does. And so then for a week, I was supposed to be able to shoot hogs. My wife got sick. She didn't go there that much. Well, he ended up, we were up in the stand. I shot a pig, then he shot a pig, then I shot a pig. Well, he hit it back. It quartered forward, and it came out right behind the front leg. So he came back in the guts. Pigs have got monster livers.
Okay.
And I mean, they're so big, they go down to the belly and they go back. And he came out right behind the heart and the front leg. When I gave my seminar, what I wanted to have for all this stuff, because like I said, you guys are crazy into that, I'm crazy into this. I wanted to have, when I do a seminar, I want to have dead animals there to look at to see that were shot.
Yep.
So then none of this opinion stuff. So I had 3 pigs there. They didn't want me to do it because, you got people walking around, they got 3 dead pigs. I even had the arrow, the one I shot, in the animal. I hadn't taken it out yet. Can't take your lungs out yet. There was a doctor I met before the seminar. My seminar was at the end of it.
Yep.
And I said, I'd like you to come to my seminar and find me wrong in anything that I say. Because like I said, if I'm saying something wrong,
right,
my point's not to argue it. Oh, okay, I want to know, because I'm not an expert. And so we went there, and on the pig that Mark Woolley, this is the cameraman, this is all documented, he shot it back here, through the stomach, through the liver, out the left lung on the side, take the liver back, there's the diaphragm, all intact, you can see the hole, here's the center, here's the left, right there's where he hit it. Came out right behind the heart. There's no hole in the lung. There's no hole in the lung. The lung had, on the back edge of the lung, it had a strip of black, which is going to be blood that coagulated or got trapped, hemotherapy, in the back of that part of the lung. Remember I told you that guy earlier that shot the one in the heart, but it actually hit the liver? Yeah. He went into the thorax cavity, which is in the front of the diaphragm, right by the heart, but he angled back and he hit real low. And he hit the liver, but he was inside the diaphragm. There was no hole in the lung, but there was a black edge along the rim of it. Your lung was filled with blood, which is the blood going into it, which you see a lot of time. You see different things. I've seen when we usually got 3 deer lately and stuff. You see them. That's just a hemothorax, which just means blood in the lung. So even though yours hit it, I don't have understanding, but the fact that it was low just to me is interesting. It's interesting on how that was. But the fact the blood came out, if the blood went out, well, like in my elk, the blood didn't come out. At first it did, then it quit, so it clotted up. You could see it fat. Yours couldn't have added up because the blood still kept coming out.
Yeah.
So it's still bleeding.
And there was
so if it would have died,
big hole in the lungs.
A question that I would have is, if the lungs don't collapse, how long would it take a deer to die from blood loss? Now, you have, how many people have told you they shot one and they went below the backbone and went through the dead zone?
Hit the
Now,
dead zone, yeah.
even though that's not true, is it possible that they could still hit the lung up through there, but the hole seals up and they don't collapse and the deer ends up living? Well, if that's the case, we would see it in these lungs. I want to do it. I do know of, when I was at the ATA last year, the editor from Bowhunter magazine for 25 years, he gave me his book. I forget his name right now. He shoots about 200 animals a year in Africa. Okay. He knew on 2 different occasions where an animal was shot in both lungs and it lived. And one was an African animal, the guy shot it. He went back the afternoon on the same animal and it was breeding another animal and he shot it. And his hole was like 1 inch or 2 inches away. They got it, he cut it out and he got to see that.
Wow.
So why and how is a question. But we do know this, there was not enough blood loss on your deer to die or he wouldn't have made it that far. Right. Now, does that mean that even though the blood that came out there was something that he could manufacture that blood to be able to make up for it? The case of how far did he go? Because you said he went a long ways before he bedded. So if he would have been calm and walked real slow, the blood should have come out slow and should have come on his side and dripped down more towards the middle. And you guys had a blood trail the whole way.
We had a blood
So
trail.
there's no reason that it would have clotted up. There's no reason the hole would have plugged up. And even if it would have plugged up, it doesn't matter. It's still bleeding inside him. It doesn't make, it's just what we see visually.
Right.
So these are the things that as I go on, as we're doing this, it'll be interesting as I go down this road, which more people I know, because the number one expert in the world, if I looked at who would be the one that could answer this, the number one person would be Randy Ulmer. He's my small G god, because Randy Ulmer is, I think, in the World Archery Hall of Fame. He's, as far as an archery technical expert, there's nobody any better than him, and he's a large animal veterinarian.
Yes. Yeah.
So he has all that, and I've talked to him. I took it at the ATA one year. I took a deer there. You can go on deer hunting and see it. And I brought it there, and I blew the lungs up and inflated everything. So then Randy Ulmer came by. We got to go over a bunch of stuff there. And so I've worked. When I say worked, but I've talked to a lot of veterinarians and stuff. My problem I've had with the medical community is they say a lot of contradictory things, and I've interviewed them. And I'm afraid to put some of the stuff on there because it would kind of make them look like a fool. Like, I mean, if a gut shot deer dies, they'll say, no, you can gut shoot them in the deer and they can live. But then I ask them, have you ever seen it? And they say no. And it's just like, because they know on cows and they give them medicine and things, but it's got to be documented, and I don't want to discredit people. But when I started this, I took my first sculpture that I took it to the University of Minnesota, St. Paul. I took it to the University of Madison, because I want to show them. And I took my organs there because all the diagrams and all that stuff there, they're just based on somebody drawing that stuff. Mm-hmm. I know a bear expert that just put a thing on mine that said, see where the lungs are in this bear and stuff? Well, I'm a sculptor. I do this for the living. If you go on right now and you check anatomy and deer placement on anatomy and stuff, you're going to see my name come up more than anybody else's. And you want to know something? I know how little I know. So I'm thinking, I'm the guy in the mirror that's supposed to be the expert on all this. I've done a lot to this, but I know this much of what there is to know. It's just that we're all been really naive from what we should know. And my deal is the shot placement and all these things. It's so important because there's so many people that shoot them and make perfect shots. I see it on TV. and they don't understand the anatomy, and they're actually making bad shots. They don't get it.
Yeah.
And that's all. But see, I need my deer to be done as a product, so you can take it as a tool with your son and shoot it, and then you're going to take a panel off, and you can see the different organs there.
Yeah.
So
This deer, this trail, like we learn something on everything. That we talked about where I was gonna maybe get a drone or have a buddy that had a drone.
yes,
It opened my eyes. I wouldn't have searched where this deer died or where we finally end up getting this deer. If we would have lost blood up on top after 300 yards.
you
Okay.
would have never guessed to go over there to look for it.
Crossing
No,
that
I
field, crossing that
we
2-track,
wouldn't.
going up on the bluff on the other side.
No way.
I would have been, because it's a lot bigger woods going the other way. And so a couple things.
Way to talk
Obviously, we talked about this. Throw out all preconceived notions when you're tracking a animal that wants to live. Like, well, I found one over here before that I hit, and it died, or I think it's going to go downhill, or I think
Gonna go to water.
it's going to go to what?
That's a con.
I usually
People,
just
they just don't understand.
you got to go where the deer goes, right? I mean, if his blood
Yeah,
goes,
that's
you
right.
and if you're, I've seen it happen. I've done it, where God, that deer's going to go to that thicket. I know he is. Your mind just keeps wanting you to go over there, and you're probably walking past the blood trail here.
Well, Jack, I want to thank all of you for allowing me to come in here and hear your story, and I want to congratulate Jack for not only getting such a nice buck, but something on the camera we didn't say is when we came in, he asked if he could help bring things in all in his own without being told, and that's a big deal to somebody like me. It is. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you coming
Yeah.
down. I've got to answer. It's like my dad said too. It's fascinating. Learning everything I can about these animals, not just going out to say, we got to do the food plots, got to do all that stuff, but learning how to kill them, learning how to make them.
Well, I'm going to put you on the spot and tell you what I'd like. If you get some cameras, if you can get this doe this late season, to try to start having some more documentation, find out what it is that we want in the Perfect Kill Shot documentation project. Because then we have stuff for people to be able to see. Because what my goal is of having these 1,000 animals that are being videotaped, you could then sit down and take a look and go through a library and say, okay, lower lung shots. And you could take a look at them, and then you could watch the videos and then see how far did they go. What was the blood trail they had? Did they die? What happened? They'd have all this information as a library for everybody to take a look at. But I can't do that. I need the general, that's my deal, is I've got to win you. So you're going to say, this is a worthy thing, and I want to be part of that, and I want to help.
Yeah.
And that's what we want. So especially with you having a guy that's on staff there, and with the deer that you have shooting does, doesn't matter as far as anatomy, whether it's a buck or a doe, it doesn't matter.
Right.
As far as seeing
And it
what
doesn't
it is.
matter if it goes 30 yards or a
No,
mile.
the learning comes from bad shots. I mean, if somebody makes a double lung shot, it tips over there like that. That's fine. We've seen that. That's all good. The learning is when it's a compound angle and it goes farther. And there's stories that make it there that make it interesting and stuff. So,
All right.
but yeah, that would be good. So, well, thank you, gentlemen, so much,
Well,
and
thank you.
congratulations
Thank you
for
again.
making me jealous about your hunting. I'm going to go back and tell everybody.
We're just very fortunate to live,
Yes, you are.
live where we
Yes,
do,
you are.
and we're kind of rabid here when it comes to deer hunting, and it's really part of our life. It's our
Yeah,
life.
it's a wonderful part, isn't it?
Well,
Yes.
this is
Yeah. Yep. You're very fortunate to grow up in a family to have all this in common to do this. I feel sorry for the people that are in the cities that are all these kids that are glued to all these machines and gizmos and all these games.
Yeah.
Just seeing what it is. There's something that to gain, when I make this statement, you'll think I'm crazy, but to be able to go out in the woods and be able to be bored is a good thing. To be able to enjoy the woods. Just to be in the woods, not seeing any deer, knowing it's there, but I'm out there. It's just a great experience being out there.
Yeah.
But people have to know that in itself is a great thing. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, thank you for coming
Yes.
and interviewing us and putting some of our questions to rest. And
Well, we didn't really answer it. Just give you some thoughts. I got some points, got some facts, but I don't have answers.
there's
I
some
don't know.
questions that will probably never be answered. But
They're there, hopefully, with enough
Hopefully they're
enough
there,
things
yeah.
going through medical. Like I said, where you shot it, how low, high, all that. We'll go back, take a look at those pictures,
for sure.
see if there's anything there to give to it.
But it takes this kind of science to do that.
Yeah, and I think it takes a lot of. That's why I want 1,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we see a lot of what's consistent. You know, if you'd had a small broadhead, that's a great big monster broadhead. I mean, that's basically a rage broadhead
Yeah.
in essence.
And
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It's just fixed, that's all.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's going to go through. It's
Right.
not going to explode on impact. So you're going to get better penetration,
Right.
and you get it to fly, which is remarkable.